Okay, so did you know that the players in Squid Game could have actually seen what games they'd be playing before they even played them?
Yes.
Between the matches, the characters were all placed into a room filled with bunk beds, and though this seemed just like a rest area, if you look at the walls, they're actually filled with significant markings.
I mean, to be fair, we might have been distracted by the beds. I'm just saying.
As the beds get slowly stripped away, it's revealed that these paintings are actually all of the games that the players would be playing throughout the tournament. First is Red Light, Green Light, there's also the Honeycomb game, Tug of War, the Glass Hopping one, the Three at the Table, and lastly the titular Squid Game. The series
Wait, how did you know you would have 3 at the table after the pillar one? Excuse me. How would you know you would have 3 at the table? What, would you just fucking lock them in this room until there's only 3 left? Or is that why you set off the glass bomb? But you only had 3 at the end of this thing anyway. So why did you set off the glass bomb? That makes no sense. If you had 4, set off the glass bomb. But you had 3. You had the perfect number. And it was perfectly fair. Because none of them were injured. And then you glass bombed one. Why? Okay.
The Squid Game. The series itself is filled with clues to the eventual reveals, and this is also the case with the player who's behind the entire thing. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and throughout this video we're going to be breaking it all down, but I just want to give a huge spoiler alert for the series. If you haven't checked it out, then this is your chance to quit playing, but if you want to continue, then I hope you thumbs up the video and also subscribe to the channel.
I love how he gives a spoiler warning after actually giving the first spoiler, but anyway.
With out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Squid Game. Okay, so at the end of Squid Game, we learn that it was Ilnam all along. The final episode reveals that he invented the games as a form of entertainment.
I'm sorry, but this video is not actually 4K. I am watching this video in 4K and it is pixelated. He took a 1080p video and stretched it to 4K. That is not 4K. You deserve to be sent to a gulag.
For him and his rich buddies who had become bored with life. We learn that he had actually got involved in the one that we see in the show because he was dying and wanted a final bit of fun in his life before it was too late. The ending was absolutely incredible, and the scene had Jihan saying goodbye to the character as he lay on his deathbed.
Some rich Russian billionaire died of an overdose. An overdose of Viagra. He was having sex for I think 20 hours straight. It was a mixture of Viagra, cocaine, and vodka. Eventually his heart gave out. Technically he didn't overdose, but he died of a heart attack. But he was going at it for 20 hours. Guy went out like a boss. I mean, that's how the fucking Russians go out in style. But sure, you want to go into a killing game? Sure, you go for it, buddy. Whatever.
This last meeting actually reflected their first one, in which he too encountered the character as he sat in a bed. It was a pretty big twist that pulled the rug out from under your feet, but eagle-eyed viewers might have spotted early on that there were several clues pointing towards his true identity. Now the first one is that he is number 1, the very first player.
Man, if the first player in any killing game is like the lead guy, okay, cool. Okay, fine.
Look at the subtext of the series. Jihan is the final number, and throughout we watch as he very much works his way to first place, aka Ilnam. In the final episode, he's left as number 1, he inherits a large portion of the character's fortune, and comes face to face with him in one of the final scenes. 1 is symbolic on a number of levels, and because it's the first place, it also hints to us that Ilnam is number 1, and that he's the one controlling everything.
Or he was just an old guy with a brain tumor that was easier to approach because he was going to die anyway, and he was the easiest to convince because he had nothing to lose. But anyway.
In episode 5, Hwang Jun-ho sneaks through the compound, and he eventually finds a storage room with files on all of the games that have happened over the decades. Upon opening the 2021, the first player there is actually number 2, and Ilnam's profile is completely missing.
Touché.
There is no file for number 1 because he doesn't need or want to keep a record for himself.
How about the fact that number 69 keeps changing in every image in the first few episodes? Are we going to talk about that?
The other players in the game also somewhat hint towards us that something is off with Ilnam, and though it's not too obvious, when you really think about it, he wouldn't be someone that would be selected for the process. Everyone else in the Squid Game is roughly the same age, whereas he's extremely elderly.
What about the elderly married couple, or the other elderly woman that made it into the final 16, or the other elderly guy that made it into the final 16? I mean, I guess he's really elderly, but he's really got nothing to lose. He's got a fucking brain tumor. Hell, you've got really young people, why not really old people? I thought this game was supposed to be all-inclusive. Because not everything is about, strength. But then again, expecting this old guy to jump on those stairs is pretty fucked up.
He's also dying of a brain tumour, and thus, even if he did win the life-changing money, it wouldn't last that long.
Why would these guys care?
Though he gives his reasons as to why he wants it, from what we know about the games and the players that have been selected in the past, they're all roughly between 20 and 40, and he's a complete outlier in all of this. Now the games themselves are also major giveaways too. Throughout the series we watched as he said they were all things that he'd played as a child, and in retrospect it becomes blatantly obvious that he selected them himself because they're what he knows. On repeat viewings, it's clear that each of them are something that he not only played as a kid, but they're also things that he's very, very good at. Now the first thing they play is red light, green light. Whilst the other players are absolutely terrified for their lives, he gleefully struts about whilst the Terminator's back is turned, and even stops before it looks back to face the crowd. He knows all of the lyrics to the song that the machine sings, and therefore knows to stop in advance before it ends and turns back around. If we look at the clip of the targeted players, you might also notice something different about him. The one directly to his left and all of the other ones to the side have a slight green overlay that appears over the top of them. If we look at the players to his right, outside of the girl crouching down beside him, this is also the case too. Everyone other than him in this girl's tracksuit appears slightly green, and I believe that this machine sees him without the glow because it's been programmed not to shoot him. If this without the glow tracks down beside them, about him in advance before it ends and turns back around. If we look at the clip of the targeted players, you might also notice something different about him. The one directly to his left and all of the other ones to the side have a...
Yeah, but the green glow is basically body mass and they're overlapping. Is there a body mass on this one? See, no green glow in between. They're overlapping, so the green glow is like this. This one's sort of on the outside, so it's focusing here. That's because he's on the outside of this. That's not, okay.
Slight green overlay that appears over the top of them. If we look at the players to his right, outside of the girl crouching down beside him, this is also the case too. Everyone other than him in this girl's tracksuit appears slightly green, and I believe that this machine sees him without the glow because it's been programmed not to shoot him. If this theory is right, then he also has a protective ring around him that stops the machine from firing at people in his vicinity in case it misses, and that's why the girl to his right is also safe too.
But the machine isn't the one firing, it's the people with the guns.
Immediately after this game, the players decide to cast a vote on whether they should end the tournament or not. He is the one who makes the choice in the end and casts the deciding vote to end the game. This subtly shows his power over the entire thing, and I actually think that he carried this out for a specific reason. He wanted to give the players a chance to walk away from it all knowing the stakes, and if they came back then that would ease his conscience slightly as the choice was theirs.
And what if the majority of the players just said we don't want to go? Like, I get the symbolism, but you know what I mean?
Now cut to the honeycomb game, and Ilnam ends up choosing the star. Though this seems like a very complex shape, there's not actually any bends in it like the circles or umbrellas. Though you might think it's easier to have the triangle's lines are longer, whereas the stars are shorter, so there's less to cut through before you hit an edge. Being completely honest though, yeah, the triangle is a pretty easy shape too, but Ilnam didn't exactly have one of the difficult ones either.
I would have expected him to say that breaking off, what? Star's not too bad. But didn't he just get it through sheer chance? He was just going with whatever? That's a grasp at straws. Because the guy picked the triangle first, and the old guy was going to go last. And he pretty much picked the umbrella, so the old guy went with the star because they all went for something different. He didn't pick it himself. That's just grasping for straws. That particular one is just grasping at straws.
And next we jump to episode 4, in which a fight breaks out during the night. Throughout, Ilnam hides away from the carnage up on one of the bleachers, and he ends up begging for the fighting to stop.
Okay, the begging part, yes, they stop when he begs. But wasn't I screaming throughout the entire reaction? Wouldn't your best strategy be to get on the highest bunk bed? Because the only entry up there is to climb up and the people's hands are going to be busy and you can always kick him with your feet. I mean, what's the worst that happens? If they have a sharp object, they'll cut your feet. And what's the worst that happens to them? You hit their hands and they fall, or you hit their head and you give them a concussion and you win. I mean, it's the safest spot. Come on. The begging? Yes. The climbing up at a high ground? I mean, I recommend Star Wars Episode 3.
Even though up until this point it seemed like the front man was completely in control, he immediately sends the guards in because Ilnam requests it. Another clue is that his bed is the only one that isn't flipped, and this is because the guards likely know who he is. Next they play a game of tug of war, and because of their players it seems like Ilnam's team are about to be sent to their deaths. However, he is the one who tells them how to win, and because of his guidance they easily beat the much stronger team.
So the old guys played tug of war before. Okay. I mean, yes. He probably knew what it was going to be, and so he had the strategy. But God forbid someone else in this group actually knew how to play tug of war. They would have been fucked.
Ilnam had clearly played the game hundreds of times before and knew the best strategy to take. Any team with him was destined to win, and the fact his strategy works definitely proves this. The final game in which he takes part is the marbles one, and this also has a lot of clues in it. Throughout it, it seems like the character is struck by dementia, and he constantly walks around looking for his house. This game not only pulls from his childhood, but the area does too, and unless the Squid Game organisers were psychic, then they'd have no way of knowing what his home looked like.
Or the guy just has really severe dementia and his brain is filling in the gaps because memory is not perfect. It just remembers the last time we remembered something and it fills all the blank spots. That's how memory works. But what would I know about human psychology? I just study this shit in my spare time.
Throughout the episode, everything he says is brushed away as the ramblings of someone with the disease, but knowing what we know, it becomes all the more obvious that he's in control.
It's not a disease, it's an illness. Diseases are contagious, illnesses are not.
In the end, he seems to find his home, and personally, I believe that this is a perfect recreation of it. He's giving the game away because throughout the entire season, he's letting us know that all of the challenges and environments are based on things from his life. He lets Jihan win, and the character is then seemingly killed off camera, but we know that isn't the case.
I mean, the old guy that is dying of a brain tumor, that's suffering extreme dementia and losing himself, decides to sacrifice himself for a guy that played games with him. I mean, yes, in the sake of the plot, it was a good way to get him out of the game, but it is entirely possible that someone would do that. We saw the other girl doing that for the other girl, didn't we? Because she had absolutely nothing to live for, and she gave the other girl a fighting chance. She sacrificed herself for the other person. It's not outside the realm of possibility for one person to do this for another.
If we look closely at the gate that Jihan has just walked out of, we can see that he's no longer there, and though the rest of the court is filled with bodies, his is completely missing.
Okay. I'm gonna be a dick. He is standing here. Mr. German Nazi is here. Gun is pointed here. He gets shot. He falls on his right hand side.
Seemingly killed off camera, but we know that isn't the case.
If he fell, he would be off camera. His feet would be here. What's your point? Fucking grasping at straws, man.
Closely at the gate that Jihan has just walked out of.
And this guy's fucking grasping at straws half the time. I'm sorry, but quick logic check. Camera angle. It'd be better to say that the camera conveniently does not show here to show that his body's not there. How convenient. It's sleight of hand. It's misdirection. It's purposely done. I mean, I get what you're saying, but you've got the answer correct, but your working's all wrong. Sorry to be a dick.
We can see that he's no longer there, and though the rest of the court is filled with bodies, his is completely missing. Now, knowing what we know, a question you may have is why did Ilnam end up leaving the game at this point when he was still invested in playing? Well, the next game is the deadly hopscotch one, and this is by far the most unpredictable of the lot.
Or, you know, he's fucking old and jumping sucks for old people. I mean, let's be fucking real. It's the one that he would probably die in.
If he didn't end up getting put in last place, then there would be a danger that the person behind him could push him to his death.
Even being in last place would be dangerous for him if the timer runs out. And he couldn't just reveal, hey, I'm in on it. I'm just going to walk out without getting shot or blown up.
Like what we see in the episode. There's also the possibility that due to his brain tumor, he may have forgotten along the way which glass to step on, and he simply couldn't risk it.
Or, you know, being old, he would struggle to continually jump because hips and knees and muscle mass and energy and stability and all these other things. I mean, what would I know? My father just had a brain hemorrhage several times.
Now that is of course a theory, but overall, going back and knowing what we know, I actually think the series becomes better on a second watch. Now obviously I'd love to hear if you spotted any other ones below, and if this is your first time here, then I hope you enjoyed your trip to the Heavy Spoilers show. We are running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of the Zack Snyder DC trilogy.
For anyone that's watching this reaction, I'm not ripping into the guy for pointing these things out. This is my way of commenting my thoughts. Feel free to agree, disagree. This is not me tearing into or insulting a guy. I'm just stating my opinion. Because I love plot twists as much as the next guy. And we all know this. Alright, where's the other video? But, to be fair, half of your video was grasping at straws. But, you know, there's one thing I do respect. The fact that you actually did this. The timestamps. I respect that. Like, you did more than just cash in on a trending craze. You actually put in timestamps, and I also respect that your video is 8 minutes and 35 seconds, which means you could put more than one ad in there, and you did stall for time a little bit at the end. I see what you did there, but it's okay. It's cool. I'm not going to deduct too many points from you. I'm a bit of a dick sometimes, but I'm an honest dick. Alright, where's the next video? Come on. Everything wrong with Squid Game? This is my type of shit. This is my type of shit right here. Everything's wrong with Squid Game. By the way, guys, I am a dick, but come on. Sometimes I have a point. 9 times out of 10, I'll be wrong. But that one time, I have a point. And you gotta admit, sometimes I have a point.